it's got some unique songs that involve one member of every significant boy band of this era that we're talking about. One member from each on an original record together, which is the first time in history that we all know of that that's happened.
You're just going to casually drop that in the middle of the conversation
and expect me not to freak out.
Mention it casually.
I'm pretty sure we could call this guy the official DJ of the Backstreet Boys. It is DJ LUX hanging out today. Hello.
Hello, hello. How are you all?
You know what? Doing all right so far. My name's Alex. I'm joined by my co-host, Calista. And
hello.
We're happy to have you, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your collaboration, your frequent collaboration, so much so that it turned into a band with AJ McLean of the Backstreet Boys, All the Cool Kids. Where does that begin? And also, why All the Cool Kids?
It began many years ago. AJ and I are managed by Johnny Wright. We're managed by the same guy. And one day I was watching television. I was watching the ACMs, and I saw AJ performing with Florida Georgia Line on the ACMs when they had God, Your Mama, and Me, right? So I hit Johnny. I'm like, man, has AJ ever thought about doing a country effort? It's AJ. He's very natural. He's a down to earth guy. He's a dude's dude. He's a cool guy. And so anyways, AJ and I met. We got in the studio. We started working. I was producing a lot of the country project for him. And one night, like 3 o'clock in the morning in the studio, we're listening down to music. And I was like, man, I've always had this idea to produce like EDM records, dance records, kind of to do something different. And AJ's like, really? Me too. And it kind of was this moment where like, we should do this Chainsmokers-esque like project, but bring in other feature artists. He has, of course, he does everybody. And I know some people, I'm like, well, we could bring this person in and that person could sing. And so that's kind of where it started. And then fast forward like 3 months later, AJ texts me and he's like, hey, what do you think about All the Cool Kids to name the band? And I was like, yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's really, it's kind of became a thing because, I've never shied away from the fact that I don't look like, the typical pop star. I'm like kind of a heavier dude and I'm just like a normal guy. And so it kind of became this movement where like All the Cool Kids is like everybody. There's no differentiating like the celebrity from, it's a melting pot of, no matter what, you're welcome with us. You're sitting at the Cool Kids table with us, and it's grown from there.
You actually have been supporting Backstreet Boys as obviously the group on tour. So I was really curious, like, which of their songs is your favorite to play?
We've got this remix of The Call that is pretty amazing. And I have to say, I love it. And it gets a really big reaction in the crowd every time. A funny story about Backstreet Boys remixes, when AJ and I first started doing this was right when they had just finished recording the DNA album. And they were doing a remix package on the DNA album where they were at that time they were remixing Chances. And so AJ's like, man, you got to remix Chances for us. We'd love to hear you do it. And so I did the remix on the record, and it was about Christmas time. And so I sent it back to the record label, and I got crickets. Nobody answered because everybody was gone. It was Christmas. And so I texted to AJ, and AJ sent it to the fellas, and everybody loved it. But by the time that the record label got back in the office, they had already set up the remix album to be distributed, and my song didn't make it. So we struck a deal with the label to allow them to let me put my Chances remix out myself, and I did like 1.3 million streams the first 2 weeks on it. Like I think I did more streams in the first 2 weeks than maybe some of the other guys added together. That was the moment where I kind of became like the remixer guy.
That's where it begins for you.
That's where it begins.
Now, you're a pretty familiar face for Backstreet Boys fans at this point. I've been out on the road with them for a lot of shows. I believe, if I'm counting correctly, this year, 22 dates scheduled, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So that's a lot of touring. That's a lot of getting out in front of these fans and hyping them up for the Backstreet Boys. During your set, what are some of the things that you like to do to fire up the crowd?
To fire up the crowd. Well, I think it's important that we always pay homage to that era of music, right? The Backstreet Boys are really interesting to me because they had a lot of success in the 90s and early 2000s, but they also had a lot of success a year ago and 2 years ago when they put DNA out. So what I try to do is I try to bring modern day hits that everybody loves and still pay homage to the era. So when you come out and you see my show, first of all, I have like an MC that tours with me. I've got a drummer and we've got people that come out. But what I like to do is I like to go through this. I call it the '90s hip hop medley, where I've got like a Jay-Z remix, it'd be like Hip Hop Hooray, and like a lot of DMX up in here, like a lot of crowd interactive stuff. And it's been really surprising to me in a pleasant way that to see all these Backstreet Boys fans like screaming DMX up in here. You know what I mean? like the old club days. It's been really cool. I've enjoyed it.
I was gonna ask, what do you think 90s boy bands had that was different from present day boy bands?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question and a tough one to answer. Even if we know the answer, it's a tough one to delicately explain. Um, you know, I actually don't think that modern day boy bands are that different than what made Backstreet and NSYNC and all those guys really successful. I think the biggest difference is actually probably going back to the fans. I think the fans are different now and they receive music in a different way, and stardom and fandom is handled differently. Um, so I think the boy bands now, they sing their butts off, they all dance. I mean, they're great and they've got great records, but it's so easy to saturate. Where the loyal fans back in the 90s when Backstreet was coming back from Germany and really hitting hard in the States, the only way was like a magazine that you got every month or every other week and to see them on tours. So you fell in love with the process of falling in love with them. I think the records were truly special. Like it was a real moment in the 90s where specifically Backstreet Boys, there are songs that they have that are timeless, like Stand By. There'll be like Stand By Me type songs where 40 years from now, people will still be singing, a lot of those ballads and records. And I think it'll stand the test of time. I'm sorry to be long-winded, but it's kind of an intricate question to answer.
I think it's something that a lot of people too in the music industry kind of puzzle over internally as well. I think even music moguls and managers and C-suite level executives go, why can't we create another Backstreet Boys? And I mean, I think that
Right.
you kind of hit the nail on the head, that it's just, you can't make another Backstreet Boys anymore. The way that the
No.
music industry is built doesn't allow for it. Even throughout all the changes in music consumption, in interactions with artists, the fans have remained loyal to bands like the Backstreet Boys or to bands like NSYNC, or even 98 Degrees still has diehard passionate fans. So
Sure.
on the 7th of this month, you were involved with a free fan appreciation night up in Nashville. That was
Yeah.
very cool to see. I wish I could have gone, but very cool to see from a distance. Tell me
Sure.
about, in your opinion, what is it about these fans that keeps them coming back 20 plus years later?
When it comes to things like fan appreciation and the loyalty aspect, I think a lot of it is derived from the fact that I'll speak specifically to AJ because he and I are close. I've known him for years, and I don't necessarily have deep of a relationship with the other guys per se. What I know about AJ is there is no fan that AJ won't stop and connect with. And they've sold 147 plus million records. 25 years later, they're still selling out huge amphitheaters, arenas, etc. And AJ is still the guy who will show up at FGL House and he will talk to everybody. Like there's no, even though he is an international superstar, he doesn't act like an international superstar when he's engaging with the fans in that sort of way. And I think that creates a loyalty from the fans that, to be honest, I think a lot of modern acts kind of lose a little bit. Like, you won't name names. Let's think about other boy bands, right? Like that have been successful in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Do you see those guys standing out the back of the arena until 4:30 in the morning? like the trucks are loaded, the crew's done and cut, and that guy's still out there signing autographs at 4:30 in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they just haven't built the foundation that AJ and the rest of the Backstreet Boys have built. And so you fast forward to today, where we do a fan appreciation thing, and these people show up and they are just loyal and fierce. And they keep coming back for more too, because AJ really is someone who knows how to reinvent the wheel for himself. You know, he did the pop thing back in the early 2000s as a solo. Then he did the country thing, which was fun. We had some success with that. And then now he's doing like a soul R&B thing. And it's always great. So yeah, I think that's what keeps him coming back, you know?
Now, as we look toward the future, both for you as part of All the Cool Kids, but also you individually as DJ LUX, there is new music to come. What can we expect from that?
Well, the thing about All the Cool Kids is it's a revolving door of talent. So you never know who's going to stay. AJ's going to come and go, and I'm even going to come and go. There may be ATCK shows without me, and so you never know what's coming next for All the Cool Kids, but it'll be great and it'll be at the level. We have some music recorded for All the Cool Kids that is it's got some unique songs that involve one member of every significant boy band of this era that we're talking about. One member from each on an original record together, which is the first time in history that we all know of that's happened.
You're just going to casually drop that in the middle of the conversation
and expect me not to freak out.
Mention it casually.
When is this coming out? Do you mind if I interrupt and ask? Is this coming out anytime soon?
It'll be a 2023 thing. Okay. But we'll just tease it. But for me, I'll have another single coming out, and I think we're looking at the end of October for that. And doing some cool things for me. I'm playing Westgate in Vegas at the end of October with O-Town and LFO. And then I'm headlining the Hard Rock Live in Tulsa for New Year's Eve, which is a huge room that I've done this 2 years in a row now. They asked me back. And something else that's coming up for me that I'm actually kind of excited about is we're going to start doing some dates with some like 90s hip hop kind of things. So you'll see me out, you know, we're looking at dates being out with like Chingy and Coolio and some fun things like that, you know, honestly is kind of a stretch from what I normally do, but it just sounds like a lot of fun. You know, for me, it's not about the branding so much as like, what can I do that I can love and have fun and just enjoy? And who wouldn't want to play a show with Coolio? Like, I can't think of anyone. So I'm pretty excited about the rest of the year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very much, DJ LUX, not only
for of course
stories, and thank you for your time here as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.